Okay, so we continue in Sefer Ha-Aggadah. This is page Kavbet Kav Gimel 22-23, and this is a paragraph that speaks about the Tower of Babel. So here is a story in the Torah that is very very strange in terms of trying to understand what was the act and what was the punishment. The story of the Tower of Babel. The Torah says, the whole land had one language and one matter. Let's translate like that. And then, as they were traveling after the flood, they found a valley which seems to be in the area of what today is Iraq or Mesopotamia. And they decided to dwell there. And then they said, we might be scattered all over the land, so let's build a city and a tower that reaches all the way up to the sky, and we'll make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we are not going to remain united. We're going to be scattered all over the land. And then the Torah says, God says, "Hava nireda v'nir'eh." Let us go down and see what is it that humans are doing. And God comes and sees the tower, and He says, Now that they are building the tower, they can accomplish everything they were planning to do. So I must mix up their languages so they will not be able to understand each other. And that's what Hashem did. And He created this linguistic confusion. They cannot understand each other. And as a result, they stopped building the tower, and they are scattered all over the land. So the real question is, what was wrong with that? Finally, they get united. They want to live together. They work in harmony. Why does God have to disturb them and interrupt their efforts? Right? So the Midrash comes with a very interesting answer. Two answers. They said, we should build a city with a tower that reaches all the way to heaven. They did their calculations looking at the calendar, and they realized that the Mabul took place, according to that, 1,656 years after creation. They say probably the next cycle will be in another 1,600 years, give or take. Let us build scaffoldings and support pillars to keep the heavens in place. דבר אחר, כך אמרו, לא כל הימנו לעבור לו את העליונים וליתן לנו את התחתונים. He says, why would God have the privilege to live up in heaven while we are confined to life on earth? אלא בוא ונעשה לנו מגדל ונעשה עמו מלחמה. Let's build the tower and go scale all the way up to heaven, fight with God, bring Him down, and we will control the heaven and the earth. The original Midrash says even further that they were shooting arrows towards the sky and they fell back tipped in blood and they thought that they killed God. So, but this is obviously not in the Torah, right? The story is not there. But the way the rabbis keep on unfolding the story gets very interesting. It says, Sheva ma'alot היו לו למגדל ממזרחו ושבע ממערבו. They had 7 terraces or grade to go up the tower on the east and 7 on the west. Another Midrash says that it would take 7 years to go all the way up to the top of the tower. So they would have to make the bricks at the bottom of the tower, and then by the time delivery, within 5 to 7 business years, it would be a little bit of a problem. So of course this is an exaggeration, because if they would have done something like that, they would bring all the materials with them as they go up, meaning that they would have in every stage of the way going up a landing or something like that to make bricks. But the interesting thing is this: it says, "Im nafal adam vamet, lo hayu samim et libam elav, ve'im nafla levena achat, hayu yoshvim ubochim ve'omrim oy lanu, matai ta'aleh acheret tahtea." Meaning, if like they have bricklayers, right, and they come up with the if you ever saw, like in primitive societies, they have those wooden plates, and on them they carry the mud bricks that were baked in the sun. So they go all the way up. Actually, they did it in the furnace. So they go all the way up, and someone trips and falls. He falls off the ledge and dies. So they don't say, they don't mourn the worker. They mourn the bricks. Says, now we're missing a batch of bricks. When are we going to get the next one? And then the punishment finally is ונבלה שם שפתם כשאמר אחד לחברו הבא לי מים הביא לו עפר היכה ופצע מוחו. One man asked the other, says, I need more water to make the cement, and he gives him more dirt or sand. He gets angry and he hits him or even kills him. And the one says, give me a hammer. He gives him a shovel. He hits him, and they end up fighting. It is like the United Nations, but without simultaneous translators. Can you imagine, like, people talking to each other in a language they don't understand? It's bound to get really messy. So, but all this doesn't really explain the textual problem of the Torah. There's no indication in the text that they did anything that was contradictory to God, that they were going against God, there was anything about religion. And even the punishment, the way it's described in the Torah, is not in the category of the regular punishments that we have. The regular punishment in the Torah, someone dies, someone is plagued, they lost their possessions. In this case, nothing happened. They just were scattered all over the land. It doesn't seem a punishment strong enough for people who wanted, according to the Midrash, to commit this act of blasphemy and heresy and to go and fight with God. So, the answer, the first commentator that I think went in the right direction on that was Rabbi Ovadia who lived in Italy, and you could say Renaissance Italy, and maybe understood things differently because of the political settings and all that. So, it's a one-line commentary, but the idea that he presents is this. The builders of the Tower of Babel, what they intended to do was to create a society that will concentrate around the tower, and the governors or the leaders who will dwell in the tower will tell everyone what to do and how to behave and how to think. And that's the meaning of the pasuk, Safa ahat udvarim ahadim. One language and one issue, meaning they all have to have the same ideology. Or in other words, what we would call it today, it would be a totalitarian society, like 1984. It's in 1984, which is first amazing that in a short paragraph in the Torah, thousands of years before George Orwell, you have a description of the danger that could come from a totalitarian society, which means this society is where people are not allowed to think independently, to communicate independently. Everything has to be government approved, even the language, not even the language. The first thing that is approved and has to be state or government approved is the language. For example, when Stalin took over Russia, one of the first things he did was to go after artists and authors and writers, filmmakers.
Intellectuals.
And today it's the internet. In China, the internet is being controlled. So language is something that is considered for totalitarian regimes, it's considered something dangerous because it gives people the tools to express themselves. In 1984 also, there's a very strong emphasis on how the government controls language. So what happens is here, they really didn't commit any sin yet. They were going to. If they would have succeeded with their plan, God doesn't say that they did anything wrong. He says, Lo yibatzer mehem kol asher yazemu la'asot. They have yazemu in the biblical Hebrew could be a plan with a good result or with an evil result. In modern Hebrew, it's divided. Yazam is initiative or entrepreneur, which is a good positive connotation. Zamam is to scheme, an evil scheme. The Torah has this ambiguity. So it says this looks on its face, for them it looks like a great idea, but it's going to be disastrous because they're going to control individuals and rob them of their individuality. So he says, what is the solution for that? I will give them the gift of language. It's not a punishment. It's not a punishment, it's a gift. The gift to humanity is that because we have so many different languages, we are forced to understand that there is creativity and people are different from each other. Now we go back to the Midrash and see that this whole thing is sort of alluded to, and they understood certain things here in the story. The first paragraph of the Midrash that says that they wanted to fight God is really the fight over control, total control. Then, and one of the ways that humans feel that they are in control is by building big constructions. I remember when I was a kid, in the Guinness Book of Records, it was like the tallest building in the world. Used to be, like 40 years ago, the Empire State Building, the Sears Tower in Chicago, the radio tower in Canada, or something like that. Now every year, more pretentious and daring buildings are being built. I think now there's a building in China, I think, that's going up. That's going to be more than a mile high. And sometimes it's just on top of everything they add an antenna just to say, realize we're not even scraping the atmosphere. I'm not talking about the stratosphere, but we have this tendency, at which the rabbis identified here. It's fighting God, not really fighting God, but saying man is the only ruler, and the one who built the tower will be the ultimate ruler. It also, in a way, it reflects what we spoke about other mythologies compared to Judaism. In Judaism, God works with humanity. In other mythologies, the gods work against humanity. So there, they say those people are looking at this from the point of view of paganism. Now, when they speak about the people who are going up the tower, right? And the worker goes up with the bricks, and when he falls, they mourn the bricks and not the worker. It's not far-fetched at all. Because if you look at today's totalitarian regimes, this is what they do. They don't care about the lives of their own citizens. And we're not even talking about like Syria and what Assad is doing to his own people. We're not talking about war. You talk two examples, one of recent memory, one maybe a little further back. North Korea, people live in utter poverty. They lack really basic needs. Last year, I think it was, or maybe 2 years ago already, that they launched a rocket. You remember that? It blew off. It blew up. How long after launching it? Maybe 10 seconds? A couple of seconds, they just exploded. $800 million. So $800 million in America is not that much, right? It's a couple of houses in the yard, I don't know what. Airplane to synagogue, right? But someone made the math. It would have been enough to feed the country for 23 years. To have people, food, like daily food for 23 years. Wow. And they the rulers robbed their population from it in 10 seconds. of course, taking to build it and all that.
That's
unbelievable. Now, another thing, and this is something that a lot of I wasn't aware of, and only documents that were recently released from the Soviet Union, that during the crazy moon race in the 50s and the 60s, first the Russians had the first like the Sputnik, they were the first one to send an animal to space, but the Americans were the ones first to put man on the moon. According to some, other people say it was a conspiracy. Right. It was all shot in Nevada somewhere. Yeah, I was joking. Right. But people think that the Soviet Union and the United States worked on a similar footing, and it's not. America took some resources, maybe out of other things, to work on the moon program. But in the Soviet Union, there was no money at all. Meaning the money that they put into the space program came out of the mouths of the farmers all over Russia. People didn't have spare parts for tractors, for machinery, electricity, water. Everything was put on hold just in order to show that the Russians can beat the Americans. It was all about this totalitarian tower that reaches the sky. So the Rabbi, at the end of the story, the Midrash is pretty much accurate. It says, here is the worker who's dying, and they don't care that more and more people will die as long as they manage to get their goal. So we have to look at it, I think, in a positive way. That when Torah says, Kisham balal Adonai sefatam, or Misham efitzam Adonai al pnei kol haaretz. This is where Hashem mixed up the languages and scattered them all over the land. We say, wow, this is a great gift, because God now allows us to go into different places and to use different languages. Baruch Adonai, La'olam, Amen, Amen.